what is hypertension? Like, what does it mean? All right, because a lot of people ask me that on a daily basis. You know, why do I need to take blood pressure medicine when I feel great? Well, the deal is hypertension, in a lot of cases, has been called the silent killer. And a lot of people, what do you mean the silent killer? Well, basically what that means is, in a lot of cases, people have no symptoms. I mean, you feel great. You know, you talk about John, you know, he was playing basketball, you know, he was mowing the yard, and he ended up in the hospital with a stroke. There wasn't nothing wrong with John. But there could have been something going on with John that was undiagnosed. He could have had hypertension, but he just didn't have any symptoms. So the deal is, in a lot of cases, people can have high blood pressure. And I use a scenario. Let's use a scenario of 2 bus drivers, okay? Let's pretend like Mr. Washington is a bus driver, okay? He's a good driver. And you'll be the second bus driver, okay? Now, every day, Mr. Washington and, what's your last name, sir? White. Mr. White, responsibility is to drive a bus from Jackson, Mississippi to New Orleans and unload and come back to Jackson from New Orleans. Let's say that's an 8-hour day, right? Y'all might have lunch and probably gonna sneak and have a 2-hour lunch break, but that's okay. I won't tell your boss sitting right next to you. But the deal is, okay, let's imagine that Mr. White's bus is carrying, how many kids can fit on a bus? About 40, 30? 70? Look, you want to tell your boss you're very economic. Okay. Well, let's let 70 kids ride on your bus, okay? And on Mr. Washington's bus, he has 1 kid, okay? Now that happened. I actually have a contract with a Head Start, and they had to bring a child in for a physical, and they brought a whole bus, and they had to park it in my parking lot because they couldn't park it on the street. But the bottom line is, there's a scenario where a bus can carry 1 child because of safety issues. So we'll put it like that so you won't get in trouble. So every day, Mr. White carries 70 children, and Mr. Washington carries 1 child to New Orleans and back. Okay? Now, let's say the first year goes by. Okay? Buses are doing fine, right? Now note, he's carrying a lot of children. It's a heavier bus, right? Let's say, for instance, 6 years go by. Every day you guys are making this trip 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Which bus do you think will start to have problems first? Mr. White's bus. Because he's carrying a bus with a heavier load. Maybe the motor is getting a little worn, you know. Maybe the shocks, the brakes. There are problems going on with your bus that Mr. Washington probably won't have. So let's say the shelf life or the lifespan of a bus is 6 years, give or take 2 years. And don't hold me to that now. But let's say in 4 years, most buses are inoperable. They don't work anymore. Okay, anywhere between 4 and 8 years. So we're talking 6 years, give or take 2 years. So which bus do you think has the best chance to make 8 years? Mr. Washington. Okay. Now you're not going to get a raise because you weren't very efficient, but your bus is going to make it more likely. And your bus is probably only going to make it to 4 years because it's carrying a load. Now let's talk about the human being. The lifespan of a human is roughly now, 60 years, give or take 20. Some people might die at 40, which is rare. And some people might die at 80, which is a little more common. But the bottom line is, most people, you know, we're going to meet our maker between the age of 40 and 80, and some people can live longer. The deal is, in life, you know, a lot of things happen that we can't control. A lot of life depends on chances. But the deal is, if you have hypertension that's undiagnosed and untreated, your heart is pushing the blood, it's pumping. Just like that motor is carrying those kids. If your heart is having to work harder carrying 70-pound load versus a 1-pound load, of someone that has blood pressure that is controlled, then you have a better chance of having a heart attack or a stroke early in life. That's why it's so important, if you have high blood pressure, have it diagnosed. Go ahead and get your physical. It's covered on your insurance. And if you have hypertension, take your medication. And that way it could not be so, there can be less stress on your heart, and you have a better chance of living to be 80, 90, 100 years. I want to live to be 120. But the deal is that's hypertension. Now, lifestyle. Okay? Let me see where I am with my time. I gotta make sure. Okay, now lifestyle. It's so important that we implement lifestyle in addition to medication, if medication is needed. And in a lot of cases, if you are very effective with your lifestyle implementation, you might not need medication. Now, don't be like some of my patients. I saw one patient the other day at the movie theater, and he was like, "Doc, what's up, man?" I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "Man, I ain't had to come back." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I came to see you. You did all EKG. You put me on this medicine. You referred me to a heart doctor. But you know what, Doc? I didn't go. I didn't go get the medicine. I just started doing some planks every morning when I wake up." He said, "Every morning I wake up, I do some planks, and I'm good." You don't want to do it that way now. If you need the medication, take the medicine, and in cases you can get off, make sure that you continue to follow up with your doctor. And if you're losing weight and getting healthier, there are chances where the doctor can kind of taper you off the medicine over time, and that way you're safe. But as far as lifestyle, as far as exercise, it's good to try to get some exercise in. I suggest starting out with a walk. You don't want to get out there and run 15 miles on your first day and then you never run again for the rest of your life. You just start with your walk, maybe start with a little jogging and work your way up. But in addition to that, you want to work on your diet. Now, for the last part, I want to share with you all the Q diet technique authored by Dr. Quinn. Okay? The Q diet. Okay. Now, here's how the Q diet works. Basically, with the Q diet, you want to eat small, frequent meals throughout the day. And research where I looked at 2 groups in this research, and each group was asked to consume roughly 1,500 calories a day, which is very small. One group was asked to do 750 2 times, so they'd eat lunch and dinner. And the second group was asked to do breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, 300 calories 5 times a day. And overwhelmingly, with the results, the group that ate the small, frequent meals lost weight to a much greater extent than the group that ate the 2 meals. There are biological changes that your body goes through when it's put in a stressful situation. For instance, if I turn the lights off in here, everybody would see darkness. But in a very short amount of time, you start to see a little bit. And the reason for that is your autonomic nervous system causes your pupils to slightly dilate. That's so you can see in the dark, maybe not step in a hole. Okay? Now, if it becomes very hot in here, we'd all start to sweat because we're trying to focus, trying to stay alive with the heat so we won't overheat. And sweating is a way for us to cool down. If, for instance, we worked in the streets all summer, paving the streets, which we need to do in Jackson very badly, and we didn't wear shirts, okay? We wear like some muscle shirts, our skin would get darker. That's our mechanism of protecting us from getting skin cancer or making it a better chance that we won't get skin cancer. All of these are functions of our autonomic nervous system. These are things that happen without us even thinking about it. Like, we don't say, "Man, let's start sweating," or "Let's make our skin darker, more melanin so that we can protect ourselves from skin cancer." These things just happen. Well, the deal is, if you eat the small, frequent meals, 3 things happen automatically. And to kind of illustrate that, I'm going to go back a few months ago. I'm in Macomb, where I'm from, and I'm at church. And church ends roughly at 2 o'clock, and we go in the fellowship hall, and they got the buffet like in here, and we get our food, and I just get a little saucer of food, and everybody else gets a big old plate. And this is my family. They're all my kinfolk, and they know I'm going to pick at them every talk I do because I love them. But they say, Tim, how you eat so small, man? And I asked them, when was the last time you ate? And most people said 7 o'clock last night, 8 o'clock. I didn't eat after 8 o'clock. But the deal is, if you think about it, from 7 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning is roughly 12 hours. And then from 7 o'clock in the morning until noon, that's another 5 hours. So we're looking at 17 hours. And then at 2 o'clock, that's 2 more hours. So we're looking at 19 hours with no nutrition. So what happens is our body is put in a state where we're in a starvation mode. So our bodies have to react, and that's when our autonomic nervous system kicks in. Just like your pupils dilate, you start to sweat, and if you're hot. These are all extreme conditions. Well, starvation, that's pretty extreme, wouldn't you all say? When I'm starving, that's extreme. So the first thing that's going to happen is that person's metabolism is automatically going to slow down. They're just not going to burn calories very quickly. And, Mr. Washington, he kind of let everybody know our age because he said we went to the military academy 20 years ago. You're not supposed to say that during a speech. But the deal is, when we were young, actually, we used to eat Popeye's chicken all the time, right? And look, if I look at Popeye's chicken right now, I probably wouldn't even be able to wear my clothes because when I was 18 years old, I had a different metabolism than I do now at, not going to say my age, but as we get older, our metabolism slows down. But if we eat the small frequent meals and not let a long period of time go by without eating, then, the metabolism will be sped up a little bit if we eat the more frequent meals. The second thing that happens is when we eat, with long periods in between, as opposed to eating the small meals, we store more fat. That's our autonomic nervous system again, because it's a more efficient way to store calories. Because fat, you get 9 calories per gram as opposed to 4 with carbohydrates and protein. So we're going to have the fatter stomach, and for the ladies, we're going to have a little bit more going on. But the deal is, those things lead to heart disease and, diabetes. So we want to keep our fat consumption, we want to have a less fat body composition. And then the third thing is we release these hormones into our bloodstream that make us hungry. So when you go over there and they say, would you like a small little saucer with just a salad? Man, get that out the way. Give me a big plate of food. Give me some tea and some dessert. We're going to make different decisions because we're being led by our autonomic nervous system again, releasing those hormones, making us very hungry. So the deal is, the morning that I went to church that day, I woke up around 7:30 and I had something very small, just maybe a couple of boiled eggs and a piece of toast, just something real small. I took that toast, that other piece of the toast, and took a couple of pieces of turkey meat and folded it over and wrapped it up in aluminum foil and put it in my little jacket. So when I got to church, when I first got there, I went in the restroom, and what do you think I did in the restroom? Ate the sandwich, right? Yeah. And then when I went to the food at like 2:30, I had already eaten 2 times. So what I'm saying is you want to eat throughout the day, and some of the things I do to kind of help me with that is, like if I go to a restaurant, I'll ask the waiter to bring half of my food on the plate and leave the other half in the kitchen, so when I get ready to leave. And the waiter, if they don't know me, if it's a new restaurant, because the ones where I go, they know crazy Dr. Quinn, he'll say, sir, why not bring you a to-go plate at the end? Why does that not work? Because you're going to eat it all. There's going to be nothing to go in the plate. So what you want to do is you want to kind of set yourself up for success by prepping your meals that morning or the night before. So if you make a sandwich, cut it in half and put that half in aluminum foil, put that half so you won't eat the whole thing. But the bottom line is the Q diet works. So I want you all to, try to implement these lifestyle techniques. Go get your physical exams if you haven't had one this year. And if you have warning signs, such as chest pain or headache, dizzy, go ahead and get checked out. Because like that school bus carrying those children, you don't want to ignore it because it could be the difference between life and death. Thank you all very much. All right. Okay.